Hi, my name is Ophi YouTube Videos. I'm a lesbian and a feminist. I make videos about both of those two things, and for some reason, Drake Bell commented 16 times on the most recent one that I did. Now, this was a video about him, but it also was a video that I think pretty clearly was not for his benefit. It's a video, like all of my videos, that was for the benefit of women and feminists and people who want to be more thoughtful about the way that they talk about women online. It's also a video that had a trigger warning, one that Drake Bell disregarded and that I have been, in some threads that I've stumbled my way into online, found somehow liable for him being triggered by. I don't think that this is the case. I think trauma responses are still the responsibility of the person having that trauma response. And no, I don't owe you any background on why I know as much about trauma as I do, other than to say that Drake Bell is not the only person who has trauma. So while I do understand that he was triggered and it did inform my response to him, you will see later in the video, as well as if you've already read that thread, I was blunt in response to Drake Bell after he had accused me of misinformation and spread false information in retaliation for me being accurate. But I was not cruel to him. I did not go through and respond to all 16 of his comments. I will not be taking easy dunks on him in this video. I just want to say again, not even just for my sake, because I'm pretty solid on this, but for the sake of anybody else who is afraid of making videos like this because they might trigger Drake Bell, that's really truly not your responsibility. If what you are saying is true and is empathetic, both of which were the case in the video that I made, you are allowed to use your voice to say whatever you want, no matter how it makes people feel about it. Something really important about commentary YouTube, my videos, I even put in the description of my video series about Alexa that they weren't something that was requesting a response from Alexa. Genuinely, I didn't think that I had to say that about Drake Bell because I didn't assume he would ever even see my video. He seemed less plugged into YouTube than Alexa. But still, I stand behind my video and what was in it, and in this video, I'm gonna show you why I do. But let's just start by taking a look at the trigger warning that was present in that last video, right? And then we can move forward from there. One more thing before we do, though, I do want to say a huge thank you to Paige Christie for this beautiful, beautiful microphone. I would not have been able to have this kind of equipment upgrade if not for her kindness. She reached out to me. I am very touched. I've been a fan of Paige for about a year now. Really amazing gift from her and so encouraging to me on this YouTube journey, as well as her taking up for me on Twitter as well, actually, when this was going down with Drake Bell. I just really like Paige. You probably already know that. I used a clip from her in the end of my last video when I was talking about other people who are being empathetic to Drake's victims and centering them in their conversation around this. I think you should definitely go watch her videos if you haven't already, and I will link to a couple in the description below. But with all of that out of the way, let's get started. This is kind of implied in all of my videos about quiet on set, but I do just verbally want to denote we will be talking about descriptions of child abuse and domestic violence in this video. So Drake left me a few different comments, but a lot of them can kind of be collapsed into the same points that he was making, and as I said before, I do understand that he was triggered when he was leaving these comments. I'm not going to read each of them out loud. Instead, I'm going to put them on the screen, and if you want to read them in the full context that they were left in, you can find them on my Drake Bell video, linked in the description below, the one that was uploaded most recently before this one. The first several comments were him spamming the link to a production company, an independent filmmaker and friend of Brian Peck. I've never said in my videos that I think Brian Peck is anything less than monstrous. You can watch my videos. If you can find me a timestamp of a time where I defended Brian Peck, I would feel very differently about defending this video that upset Drake Bell as much as it did. I did not defend Brian Peck. Again, I think what Brian Peck did is horrific. I do not think he should have been able to work on another children's show, though I will point out it doesn't look like he continued to be employed by Nickelodeon specifically after his conviction, right? According to IMDb, after that 16-month stint in jail, as I mentioned, there are a handful of roles that Brian Peck has picked up, including that one on Sweet Life, appearing in things very sporadically before those seemingly completely cease in 2015. In fact, I mentioned both that I do not think that Brian Peck should have continued to work in children's television, something I maintain, and I showed his IMDb page, which includes the roles that I mentioned he had sporadically picked up outside of Nickelodeon and Disney until the documentary An Open Secret came out in 2015. Drake spammed the link to the production company for a movie that was shown on the screen in my video while I was talking about jobs that Brian Peck continued to get. The point of my video, the thing that he was objecting to, is that I was saying that people protected Brian Peck in the past, but are not currently protecting him in a way that leads me to believe there's any integrity to the story that Nickelodeon, the corporation, is paying women to come forward with stories of violence and domestic assault that Drake Bell has perpetuated, just to punish him for having come forward about Brian Peck. I don't think anybody still cares that much about Brian Peck. Frankly, I don't think anybody still cares that much about Drake Bell. And yet, in subreddits that have come and mass downvoted my video without watching it because they think, based on the comments that Drake left, that I have left out crucial information and that I defended a predator who I have never called anything other than monstrous. In those Reddit threads, they're passing back and forth this misinformation completely based on what they think the most victim defensive position is. However, Drake Bell did not interpret what I was saying with any level of good faith. And that's an acceptable thing to some level, not to the level of 16 comments on the YouTube channel of somebody who has less than 800 followers. Like, that is just inappropriate behavior. One long comment with all of those points I would have felt very differently about. 16 comments is a lot. Again, I did not respond to all of them individually, even though I very easily could have just given timestamps to the point in the video where I addressed what he claimed I didn't. But I didn't feel like that was going to be a conversation that was going to get anywhere, because he very clearly didn't listen the first time. Somebody came to me on Twitter and told me that I should have simply told Drake to watch all the way to the end. And I really, truly do not think that if he gets to have such an overblown response to my factual and considerate video, I don't get to talk about how that response made me feel. I truly don't think that if somebody is going to engage with my video without listening to what I'm saying, it's my responsibility to beg them to actually watch my video. And I can tell that the people coming from the various Reddits did not watch my video, because I always say in videos where I'm saying something where I know people might say incorrect things in the comments, I keep an eye on my comment section. I do not allow misinformation, victim blaming, cruelty to the victims of Drake Bell. It's incredibly easy to get comment blocked on the Okie Dokie YouTube channel. I love having conversations with people who will engage with me in good faith, but if you are here to intentionally misrepresent what I said and misread me, I'm gonna comment block you. And if it's funny on Twitter, I will quote retweet you, but most of the time I will just also block you there. You can say whatever you want on the rest of the internet, no matter how badly you and I both know that that reflects on you if you watched my last video. You just can't say it here. I left Drake Bell's comments up as a matter of public record, and because I do think he was trying in a way to intimidate me, either into feeling bad and taking the video down, or into taking his side and making content to support him, possibly, but I think most likely the first one. And I think that he knows that the reaction would have been what it was, that people would have seen his comments, his wall of comments, read those instead of listening to what I was saying, and then made their whole assumption on everything based on that, and it was very effective. I can tell because I'm being accused of having protected a predator when I did no such thing. Again, all of these comments, though, very easily debunked. If you watched my video, you listened to me say that he should not have continued to get work, but that he did. And if you looked on the screen, at the screens of the IMDb that I provided, or at my source document, which also linked to Brian Peck's IMDb, where that role is present. This is not a smoking gun, but he presented it as if it was, and now it is being circulated by his fans as if it's new information. Although everybody who previously knew about the Brian Peck case knew that he continued to have jobs in movies. It's very different to continue to have jobs in movies sporadically, especially from your best friend, somebody disgusting enough to still have you listed as such on his IMDb. That's different from moving from one dialogue coach full-time position on one children's network to another position on a major children's network. That's why I made the clarification that he did not continue to be employed by Disney. In no way was I defending him having gotten that job. I was just clarifying that because of the way that the narrative twists itself to try to make that conspiracy against Drake Bell in the form of invalidating all of his victims seem plausible, when you hear Brian Peck got fired from Nickelodeon and then Disney hired him, your brain kind of automatically makes some different assumptions. I haven't quite figured out how to bring the microphone over into the nuance corner, but if you have not seen one of my previous videos, I use a sign sometimes. I'll sit on my floor underneath a sign that says Nuance Corner and present multiple sides of an argument. Not in a devil's advocate way, because I don't present arguments that I don't also find compelling, but in a way that makes you consider that your first assumption of something might not be true. So I was using the nuance around the letter writers in the Brian Peck case because we are very quick culturally right now to criticize these people who wrote those letters sooner than we are willing to criticize Drake Bell for pleading guilty to reckless endangerment of a minor and distributing harmful material to that juvenile. That was the point of my video. It would have been very clear if anybody who commented on it to tell me that I was defending Brian Peck watched it, but I think, you know, because I was not on Nickelodeon as a child, I don't rate 35 minutes of attention, but if you watched it, you would have understood that, and again, that's why I'm really not digging super deep with these. Similarly, he accused me of not mentioning that two of the people who wrote him letters worked on Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. That was not only verbally stated in my video, but I had the article from Variety up on the screen and linked in my description below. I also want to note that because I think most coverage about this doesn't quite stop to qualify, Brian Peck was employed on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, a show that two of his support letter writers were involved in the production of in some capacity, but claim that they weren't involved with hiring him for. Either way, he ended up having a voice acting role. He voiced a mirror. This was something that was added in post and likely, hopefully, means that he was not around the child actors. It just feels possibly like valuable context when we say, oh, he was on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. He should not have gotten hired again on children's television. I absolutely believe that. But I also just want to make it clear he was not hired onto Sweet Life of Zack and Cody in a dialogue coach capacity as he had previously worked for Nickelodeon. I almost wouldn't have responded to this at all. But Drake Bell told me that I need to do better research, and I don't. I do not need to do better research. I have done research. I have been doing research. My research is thorough. I do not make a video if my research is not thorough. That's why my videos split off where they do. If I know that I'm not able to completely cover something, I won't bring it up. I said in my video that not everybody who wrote a letter in defense of Brian Peck mentioned Drake Bell, and that is true. Not only is that true, and not only is the first letter that I looked up to double check after he told me that I needed to do better research, the one from James Marsden that I have said in all of my videos I am surprised and disappointed that his team hasn't issued an apology for. That was a character witness on behalf of Brian Peck. It did not mention Drake Bell. It did not have the name of somebody else redacted. It didn't mention knowledge of a particular 15-year-old. I did, however, talk about how other letters did mention Drake by name. I did mention how those other letters victim blamed him and made it look like he was the issue in his own horrible assault. And I made it very, very intentionally clear that those were not the letter writers that I was defending, that I was taking up for letter writers like the guys from Boy Meets World who said they were told one version of the events where he just simply didn't know how young Drake Bell was. And I said, and I will say again, Brian Peck knew how old Drake Bell was, first of all. What Brian Peck did was horrific. It was terrible. It was abuse. It was sexual assault. Sexual assault happens, can happen, does happen to men. Nothing that I have ever said on my channel has ever called any of that into question. You can watch my videos. I suggest that you do. You might like my videos if you think that I'm not making all of these points that you wish somebody was making. I might just be making them. You're probably not watching this far if you only came for the last one for Drake, but like still. I stand by my videos. I wouldn't post them if I didn't. So no, I did not need to do better research. I was factually correct. Not every single letter mentions Drake by name. Some of them do. Again, like the Gary Depew movie that was mentioned in my video. Pretty much all of these points I already made in my response to his comment and in my recent community post or the pinned comment in that video. I just, again, I wanted to point out what that does to the narrative. I want to point out also how he responded to my comment. I pointed out, again, as I said, bluntly, though I think I was well within my rights to be blunt to this grown man who was being very blunt to me. I did tell him to go misinterpret someone else, which is the meanest that I got, I think, in that comment. But, you know, beyond that. And in his response to me, when I said that his pattern of having abuse allegations against him by multiple women in his life is no more of a mistake in his life than what Brian Peck did to his, he said, "Some ex-girlfriends have some bad things to say about me after a breakup, move along." Which is just such an unbelievable understatement of the things that he was accused of even the thing that he pled guilty to, which was the reckless endangerment of a minor. He was having sexual conversations with a 15-year-old girl. He knew she was 15. He never mentioned being tricked by a Finsta or anything that he's come up with after the fact in court because he knew it wasn't true. He knew this little girl since she was a child. He knew this little girl from the time that she was a child. He took advantage of her. He groomed her. The fact that Drake Bell is a victim of grooming does not change the fact that she has come forward and said that she was groomed by him, and that a judge found that believable enough, and even Drake Bell's legal team found it believable enough that Drake Bell's best bet was to plead guilty. I'm allowed to talk about what Drake Bell has pled guilty to, and I am allowed to talk about what his former partners have spoken about. I'm allowed to talk about these things. You're allowed to talk about these things. The fact that this grown man and then his fans might come and scold you for it shouldn't stop you from being willing to stand with the victim. There can be multiple victims, there often are. And just as if a documentary came out tomorrow that detailed a horrific history of abuse when Brian Peck was a child, it would not excuse or explain or rationalize what he did to Drake Bell. No amount of me having compassion for the innocent child version of Drake Bell means that I get to just look past this history and seemingly also allegedly current pattern of grooming young women who he comes into contact with because they are fans of him, because he allegedly extorts this power imbalance over people who are watching his shows in syndication. That is creepy. I am allowed to think that's creepy. I'm allowed to say that's creepy. But, you know, if I'm going to be held to this level of examination, even though the things that I say about Brian Peck are objectively true and objectively noted in all of my source documents, I'm just not going to mention Brian Peck in conjunction with the Drake Bell allegations anymore. I assume that's what he wanted. So from now on, when I talk about Drake Bell, I'm going to just say that I assume that you already have the context about the Brian Peck story, and then I am not going to mention him again. I have made it very, very clear that I do not support Brian Peck. Anybody watching my videos who thinks that I said a word in support of Brian Peck has willfully misinterpreted me. Find me a timestamp. Drake Bell has shown up in the comment sections of other creators accusing them of misinformation. This happened on TikTok to Glass Closet and got picked up and spread by his fans who take whatever he says at face value. I'm not afraid of the fans of a guy from a Nickelodeon sitcom. I'm not afraid that anybody who actually has the comprehension ability to understand what I'm saying will think that I said those horrible things that he said, but I am just pointing out that he fucking knew what he was doing. He knows what it does when he leaves comments like that. He knows that that is going to either intimidate somebody into taking it down, into reaching out to him to ask for his side of the story, into being swarmed by his fans and defenders who take him at his word for this thing that the creator never said. Just in my comment section alone, Drake Bell denied the allegations against him by his ex-girlfriends. Some ex-girlfriends have some bad things to say about me after a breakup. Move along. He attacked me. He attacked the integrity of my video, the quality of my research, the things I was saying. And in a very minor scale way here, Drake Bell did reverse the victim and the offender. Because he, as a man who has a vested interest in, I don't know, protecting a near 40-year-old who has a history of grooming minors, especially while they are still only, 15 or 16, children. Culturally, I think that we think of a 15-year-old girl a lot older than we think of a 15-year-old boy. Those are both children. They are children who are the same age. He has an interest in protecting somebody of that age, but he accused me of defending a 40-year-old man who sexually assaults children, when I did not, and when, Brian Peck isn't even 40 anymore. That's much closer to Drake Bell's current age, actually. Which is nowhere near the age of the girl that he is allegedly seeing. I would like to recommend, if you haven't already watched Paige Christie's excellent video about the allegations against Drake Bell by his former partners, as well as the Ohio case with the anonymous victim, I really, really would recommend that you watch that. You also can watch the Ryan Beard video, Drake Bell, Victim, Abuser, or Both. It is fantastic. It goes into further detail than I will here about that current possible alleged predatory situation. What I will say, though, is that, you know, Alexa Nicholas, and I said that I was going to stop talking about her, but she fed into this. She said in her stream, in what seems to be the last Eat Predator stream for a while, that it was conspiracy theories that were being spread about Drake Bell, and that truly does not seem to be the case. I mean, again, check out that Ryan Beard video. You also can watch Glass Closet's videos on TikTok. I'm going to link in the description below. There's really good information out there about this, and it's scaring people. It's scaring Drake specifically, because when people talk about this, it shows the cracks in these PR campaigns that are pretty successful. I'm positive that I will not be the last YouTube video to get flooded with comments by Drake Bell. Again, I know that he's done that on TikTok. He has tried to refute claims and made himself look worse in the process. But to my knowledge, I'm the first person who has gotten 16. I also know that he responded to a video that a hate vlogger about Adam McIntyre made, where he was, like, saying that Adam misrepresented the situation, which I don't think is the case at all. I used Adam in my last video as well when I was talking about people who are centering Drake Bell's victims. I loved Adam's recent video about this, and again, Drake is mad because his own actions make him look bad, and then people talk about those actions and not the actions of somebody who did something really terrible to him. And Drake Bell got to maintain his anonymity in that court case for decades, really, as was his right, as he should have. And yet Drake turns around and leaks the name of his Ohio victim in his private Discord server. Drake intentionally uses her initials even though she's supposed to be anonymous in court. Drake commissions a thumbnail with her face and a red X and a green check mark over his that says Drake Bell victim story falls apart, which is what my last thumbnail was referencing, and clearly it made him angry enough to click on it. That wasn't my intention, though. I was just trying to point out how fucked up that is to do to that victim. The person who the court said was a victim, the person who Drake Bell pled guilty to victimizing. I believe her. I feel bad for her. I think she is so brave and so strong, and she said so much while he was smirking at her and doing Drake and Josh body language and trying to make her look like a liar. I do not think she's a liar. No amount of telling me that she's a liar will make me think she's a liar. I stand with that victim. I stand with his other victims. I moderate my comment section. I'm very sorry that it makes you guys that angry that one place on the internet doesn't have uncensored Drake Bell ass kissing, but it's just not on my comment section. I got accused of being a white feminist for this, I don't even know. It feels so ridiculous to even, like, reference, and I'm not going to make a habit of reading Reddit threads about my comments, but it was just so bewildering because it was so clearly from people who hadn't watched it. I think if you've watched any of my videos and you came away with the concept that intersectionality is not very important to me, you might want to try unmuting them. Other than that, I don't think I can really help you. We're going to talk more about all of this in future videos. I still want to talk more about the docuseries Quiet on Set. I still want to talk more about the way that YouTube in general contributed to that documentary. I want to talk about Tiger King. But this video mostly is just me saying I don't need to do better research. I'm never the one who needs to do better research. Drake Bell does not scare me. Drake Bell does not have a level of empathy from me that makes me overlook his wrongdoings or the way that he turned around as an adult and victimized children, even though he himself was victimized as a child. Even when we talk about allegations from ex-girlfriends, let's remember these are ex-girlfriends who were underage when they began dating Drake. None of this exists in a vacuum. Intersectionality requires understanding that none of this exists in a vacuum. We can hold empathy for Drake Bell as a child, something I have done in my videos, something that I will do, but will not continue to talk about in reference to his further wrongdoings, because he's made it clear that no amount of correct, evidence-based thing that I say is actually going to change the perspective of people who think that they're just protecting him. For the sake of other people who are watching this, the reason that I didn't get into Brian Peck is because there are multiple documentaries about Brian Peck's wrongdoings. There are a handful of YouTube videos about Drake Bell's, and they make him so scared that he leaves 16 comments on them without even actually listening to what they're saying. If you liked this video, please like this video, maybe share it with somebody when down the road he inevitably does this to somebody else and they need a little boost and you need me to tell them that they didn't do anything wrong. You can leave me 16 comments if you actually bothered to read any of my source documents in my other videos, because again, even if I hadn't said these things in my videos, which I did, they were on the screen and in the documents. It was actually a pretty good algorithm boost when Drake left me that many comments. Hi to everybody who has found me through that. You also can find me on Twitter if you would like to. I'm Ophidokes over there. You can support me on Patreon if you're interested in getting more videos from me. I'm talking about the new Taylor Swift album this month, so I've got some videos about that on the Patreon, and then also I'm going to have a main channel video about it very soon. Because unlike what some people are saying, I'm not painting myself as some perfect activist or as a YouTube channel that is only about activism. I'm just some lesbian, and this is just a YouTube video. I hope you liked it. Bye.